The family office structure. How to layer LLC, S-Corp, and trust into one bulletproof system. 3 legal entities used separately gets you decent protection, layered together correctly, and you've got the same operating structure a family with $200 million uses. Today, I'm showing you how to stack the LLC, the S-Corp, and the trust into one system that protects taxes and transfers wealth like a private dynasty. This isn't theory. This is the actual blueprint that family offices have used for 100 years. You'll see why most people get the order wrong, why the trust goes on top and not in the middle, and the one election you need to put on the operating layer that nobody else talks about. Stay with me, because the magic happens when all 3 pieces interlock. First, stop thinking about LLC, S-Corp, and trust as 3 separate decisions. They're not. They're 3 layers of a single pyramid. At the bottom of the pyramid, you have your operating entities, the companies and properties that actually generate income and own assets. In the middle, you have one holding entity that owns all of the operating entities. And at the top, you have a trust that owns the holding entity. Money flows up. Lawsuits stop at the operating entity at the bottom. Tax flows through the middle. Ownership lives at the top and gets passed to your heirs without ever entering probate. That single shift in thinking from 3 separate documents to one 3-layer system is what separates someone with 100 grand in assets from someone with 10 million. Same legal tools, different architecture. Imagine a freelancer pulling in $200,000 a year. Without the pyramid, that income hits his personal name, his personal liability, and his personal estate. With the pyramid, the same $200,000 flows up through an operating LLC, into a holding LLC, and rests under a trust. And at every level, it's protected, optimized, and one step closer to becoming a transferable asset instead of a paycheck. Now stay with me, because the operating layer is where most people mess this up. The operating layer is the bottom of the pyramid. Every income stream you have gets its own LLC, not all of them, each one. Your consulting business, that's one LLC. Your rental property in Florida, that's a second LLC. Your e-commerce side hustle, a third LLC. Your stock portfolio that you trade actively, a fourth LLC if it generates real income. Why separate them? Because liability is contained at the entity that gets sued. If your rental tenant slips, breaks his back, and sues, only the rental LLC is exposed. The consulting business is untouched. The portfolio is untouched. Your family home is untouched. This is what private equity firms do with every single deal, every fund, every portfolio company, every real estate property. Separate entity. Limited liability isolation by design. You're applying institutional grade structure at a personal scale. The cost? About $400 per LLC per year in most states. 4 income streams, 4 LLCs, $1,600 a year. For someone earning $200,000, that's less than 1% of revenue to make the rest of it untouchable. Cheapest insurance you'll ever buy. Now, the holding layer, this is the family office. You set up one parent LLC, preferably in Wyoming or Delaware. And that parent LLC becomes the owner of every operating LLC at the bottom. The parent doesn't operate anything. It doesn't make money. It doesn't take liability. Its only job is to own. Here's why this is brilliant. When you sell your consulting business, the sale happens at the holding level. It's the holding LLC's sale, not your personal sale. Your name never appears on the closing documents. Your privacy stays intact. Your assets stay consolidated. When you want to move money from your rental income into your stock portfolio, you don't take a distribution to yourself first and pay personal income tax. The money flows from one operating LLC up to the holding LLC, then back down into another operating LLC. No tax event, frictionless capital reallocation between your assets. This is how a real family office moves money internally. You just built one. Quick check. If you're still watching, you're already thinking about wealth like someone with 20 times your net worth. Hit subscribe so I can drop you the next one. Now the tax layer. This is the S-Corp election we talked about last time, but the placement of it matters more than most people realize. You do not elect S-Corp status on the holding LLC. You apply it to the operating LLCs where you take an active role. If you actively run your consulting business, that LLC gets the S-Corp election. You pay yourself a reasonable salary, take the rest as distributions. Save 15% self-employment tax on the distribution portion. Your rental LLC does not get S-Corp status. Real estate income is passive, and the IRS treats it differently. Forcing an S-Corp on a rental destroys the tax advantages the IRS has already built in for landlords. Most accountants miss this. The rule is simple. S-Corp election goes on the entities where you actively work. Pass through everywhere else. Stack it right, and you're saving 15% on every active income dollar, while your passive income flows through untouched. Architecture. Run the numbers. $200,000 in active consulting income flowing through an S-Corp elected operating LLC. Pay yourself a 70 grand reasonable salary, take the rest as a distribution. You save self-employment tax on about 130 grand. That's roughly $20,000 back in your pocket every year, just from where you placed one piece of paper. And now the crown, the piece that ties everything together. A Revocable Living Trust sits at the very top of the pyramid. It owns the holding LLC. You are the trustee, so you control everything while you're alive. Nothing changes about how you operate the business or move money. But here is where the magic happens. When you die, the trust does not enter probate. The trust just keeps existing. The successor trustee, the person you named, usually a spouse or eldest child or a corporate trustee, takes over operating the entire pyramid the day after you die. No court proceedings, no 9-month delay, no public filing. The businesses keep running. The rentals keep generating income. The portfolio keeps trading. Your family inherits a fully functioning family office, not a frozen estate. That's the difference between transferring wealth and transferring a structure that compounds wealth. This is why the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, the Pritzkers still own things their great-great-grandfathers bought 100 years ago. The structure outlived the founder. Put all 4 pieces together and here's what you have. A trust at the top that controls everything and transfers it tax efficiently when you die. A holding LLC in the middle that consolidates ownership and moves capital silently between assets. Operating LLCs at the bottom that contain liability and let the IRS treat each income stream optimally. And an S-Corp election surgically placed on the active income LLCs that saves you 15% forever. Total setup cost under $10,000. Annual maintenance under a couple thousand. Same architecture every family office on earth runs. That's the stack. LLC, S-Corp election, trust, layered into one system. Almost nobody at the 6-figure level has this. Almost everyone at 8 figures does. If you want the deep dive on where the ultra-wealthy actually park their cash instead of a bank, comment vault below. That's the next one. This isn't legal or financial advice. Talk to an asset protection attorney and a CPA before you build any of this. But start drawing the pyramid today.